Good day everyone and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12 KJV project. Before I get into the little bit I got done on Exodus this week, I want to share with you guys about the small update so far to the tune shaders, and that is a much less sensitive smoothness function. Now, initially it was extremely sensitive between like 0 and 1, and of course between 1 and 10, and then it just was like extremely insensitive after that. Now, Sage made a suggestion, as well as Puakai in the BNPR group, and God help me apply their ideas in kind of like a mixed way. So I'm going to show you what it does now versus what it did. So this is the new setting. I'm just going to start it off at 0, so you can see that it's much easier. You can see I'm not even touching shift. You can see I'm not touching shift, but I'm not. You can see that the softness adjustment goes way higher than it used to. It now takes getting to about 50 or so to really get that sharpness look. And of course, then it still needs you to go to a ridiculous value to get the extra crisp value. So I just want to show you that again. Just want to take it down. There we go. And the same applies to the diffuse as well. So I'm very, very happy with that. I'm just going to set it on like 300 again. And the same goes for the diffuse. Look at that. Nice and soft control. And if you add shift to this, you can put it pretty much anywhere you would like to. So the way this is done, I'm just going to put this back on 300, is over here. What I do is I set my limit in terms of where I want the influence to split. In other words, I want the new adjustment to go up to about 200, and then I want it to switch to the old adjustment, or just the old adjustment. It goes straight through. So what I do is I divide it by 200 so that when it hits 200, it's equal to 1. This enables this color ramp to be used pretty much at any value, because the color ramp is limited between 0 and 1. This represents a value between 0 and 1. It doesn't matter whether you set these sliders to be 4000, it goes between 0 and 1. Its output may reflect the 4000 or whatever, but its input has to be between 0 and 1. You can see that it's got this factor input, which means it has to be a value between 0 and 1. Anyway, so I made the split point to be 200, and of course added the gradient so that there's more effect to the old influence than there is to the new. And for the how do I put this? For it to be a lot less sensitive, I divided it by 300 and clamped it. So it's kind of like multiplying your space. It's increasing your space to adjust it without it being overly sensitive. That's what the divide by 300 does. And so I applied this very simple mix technique to the diffuse as well as the specularity. I still need to apply this to the anisotropic shader and everything else as well. This was kind of what took up most of yesterday morning before I got to work on Exodus as well. So let's get into that. So what we have here is Moses talking to Pharaoh. As you can see, this is an OpenGL render. This is not a properly textured thing. You can see his eyes look kind of demonic at this point. I used ambient occlusion to generate these outlines. You can see that it kind of messes around with mixed geometry. Kind of looks like a higher resolution Super Nintendo game or something. Anyway, so this is just the the lip sync I got done yesterday. So the body's animation stops roughly about here, about halfway in, just about past halfway. And then his body kind of freezes and just his mouth moves and his eyes move. So I'm going to play you this. It's not perfect, but I'm gonna have to settle with this as is. What I want to bring in a visual aid, like with the frogs coming down from the top, or some visual element that kind of just makes the talking more interesting. What I want to do is I want to make this progressively increase as the let's call it a movie goes along, because it just makes all the talking a lot more interesting. For example, chapter 12 is pretty much just talking, where God gives them the rules and the way that the Passover is to be held. So, of course, you're going to use visual aid there, but I don't want to just use visual aid there. I think it can be used for these pieces too, because this segment is 37 seconds of just talking. I kid you not. You can see the clock on screen. It says 37 right there. So it's a bit lengthy to just watch someone's lips move. Now, I didn't mind doing that for the first time that he addresses Pharaoh to such an extent, because the first time we see them confront Pharaoh, it's very snappy. The second time we see it is when he confronts him at the river, and he does give him a speech. And there I did not use visual aid, and it was kind of borderline too long, in my opinion, personally. So what I want to do is, in this case, I actually want to start bringing in some visual aid just to soften or to make it just a little bit visually more interesting, the talking, but without being a distraction to the talking. It's difficult. Anyway, I'm just going to play you guys this. It's 37 seconds.
Thus saith the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and in...
Yeah, basically it's just telling wherever they will be. The body animation I'm not entirely satisfied with, because he kind of just, moves around a little bit. It's not really emphasizing what he's saying, so I really want to modify it. The body animation that you see comes from this section. Hold on, let me show you. No, it's not. See, this is the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Look at how his movements emphasizes what he's saying. It's just absolutely awesome. That's not what we're seeing in that scene. The body animation that you're seeing comes from this section. Hold on, let me just get there. I'll be there in a second. There. It comes from this shot. Now, this shot opens with him going backwards, kind of looking up at this stack of smoke appearing. And I just removed that shot of his head. You can see his hand clenches there, and he moves a little bit over. It's exactly this body animation that I used. Just to make it easier, because all the characters in the scene are animated, like I mentioned last week. So I just continued with this one. I haven't even touched Aaron on this thing. So all I need to do is just modify it so that it emphasizes what he says. I have to say that it's really, really useful to use existing scenes, because it reduces your workload immensely to have to reconfigure all this stuff, make sure it's the right distance from Pharaoh, make sure that all the characters are there, make sure that all the props are there, make sure that everything moves the way it's supposed to move. It is a ridiculous amount of work. Reuse what you can reuse. It'll make your life easier. Plus, it'll also avoid errors that you've already dealt with in the previous scene. So rather modify than do from scratch, if it is actually a good thing. Sometimes modifying something can take a lot longer than to just redo it. A good example would be something like where, let me just get it, it's a little bit on. Hold on. like this shot over here, where he strikes the water. There is no scene where I can really reuse that, because when they strike the sand, I'm not even sure if it's Moses or Aaron that strikes the sand to turn it into, I think it's lice. Yeah, because the flies will arrive in the morning because of the frogs and all that kind of stuff. So I can't reuse this shot. To do the sand hitting shot, I have to use a different striking method, and it can also turn out to be Aaron that strikes the sand. So yeah. So that is it for this week. I hope you guys have a great one. God bless you.